Hello again, Mr. Ryder, and this is our speed math program. We'll be concluding this lesson today, part C, and basically what we're going to be doing is examining our definitions: adjacent angles, complementary angles, and supplementary angles. We'll be diagramming that for you so that you're able to clearly understand and see how these relationships work together. And Mr. Fuglio, Aaron Fuglio, one of our stellar 11th graders, is back with us again, and he will be my assistant in diagramming these items up on the board for us. So Aaron, please, put our first diagram up. We got a line, and we have some rays coming off of this line here. You'll see this in a second. That would be one ray. There's a second ray, and there's a third ray. And technically that third ray is also a line because it crosses past the line. So what we're looking at here is we want to understand what adjacent angles are. And as I described in the definition, the adjacent angles are two angles that are next to each other. And the first pair of adjacent angles would be angles 1 and angle 2. Now you can find many other pairs here, angles 2 and 3. These would be considered adjacent. Angles 4 and 6 are adjacent angles, and 6 and 5. And last but not least, angles 5 and 1. These are all what we would consider to be adjacent angles. Secondly, our complementary angles. Now this is a little bit more confusing because we need two angles that form a 90-degree angle. Now Aaron, can you show us what two angles form a 90-degree angle?
4 and 3.
4 and 3, correct. Angles 4 and 3 form a 90-degree angle. So we would call these complementary angles. And there's two other angles in this diagram that form a 90-degree angle. What are they, Aaron?
1 and 2.
Angles 1 and 2. So these are complementary angles. Now this, as I said earlier in the previous lesson, supplementary angles are a little bit more difficult for kids to understand because these are two angles that add up to 180 degrees. And perhaps they get confused because I have to remind them that a straight line is 180 degrees. So in this particular model here, the two angles that add up to 180 degrees would be
5 and 6.
5 and 6. And even though we don't know the specific measurements of those angles, the angles actually do add up to form a straight line. And I've oftentimes tried to explain to kids that a straight line is 180 degrees. 180 degrees is if I were looking at you and I did a 180-degree turn, I looked the other way. Or if you're driving down the road and your car spins out and you're going backwards, that would be a 180-degree turn. If you went all the way around, that's a 360. So starting at one point on this line, going all the way in a half circle, is considered to be a 180 degree. So 5 and 6 consequently form 180 degrees. Okay, the issue here in tests and quizzes and having kids understand these relationships, of course, is sometimes they're not always looking at this exact same diagram. It may look a little bit different, but they need to understand that these angles, if there's two angles that form a right angle, then they have to figure out what each angle equals, and that adds up to 90 degrees. And this is where calculation and problem-solving skills come into play, and we're working on that in class. So this is basically what we're talking about today. We talked about adjacent angles, angles that are next to each other; complementary angles, two angles that add up to 90 degrees; and supplementary angles, two angles that add up to 180 degrees. So I'd like to take this time to thank Aaron helping me out today. Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
And behind the camera helping us out today is Mr. Michael Herkoch. He's one of our seniors who will be graduating this year. And so I'd like to say thank you very much, Michael, for helping us out. And we'll look forward to seeing you next time. Thank you.